Now, if you thought the controversy surrounding Blake Lively couldn't get any more dramatic, there's another layer to the story that has people talking. According to various reports and plenty of entertainment industry speculation, Blake wasn't only dealing with the growing criticism aimed at her public image. Behind the scenes, she and Ryan Reynolds were allegedly working on something much bigger. Some observers have even described it as a celebrity relocation strategy designed to create distance from the chaos. And trust me, this is where the conversation starts taking an unexpected turn. From the way the rumors have been circulating, Blake Lively was searching for something very specific. She reportedly wanted space. Not simply a break from online discussions. Not a short holiday to recharge. The whisper suggested she was considering an entirely different environment, another country, and perhaps the opportunity to begin a new phase of life. Considering the intense scrutiny she has faced in recent months, many people found the idea understandable. For a long time, Blake Lively enjoyed one of the most admired images in the entertainment industry. Audiences appreciated her sense of style, her humor, and her confidence. Together, she and Ryan Reynolds were often viewed as one of Hollywood's most successful power couples. Their interviews felt effortless, their public appearances appeared polished, and many fans considered them an example of what a celebrity relationship should look like. Then the atmosphere began to shift. Criticism became harder to ignore. Negative headlines appeared more frequently. Public conversations started sounding very different than they had before. Suddenly, Blake Lively wasn't receiving the same level of admiration that once seemed automatic. Someone listening to this story might lean in and ask, are people really saying she wanted to leave the United States because of all the backlash? And according to many of the rumors floating around, that's exactly the conclusion some observers reached. Reports claimed that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were doing more than casually browsing overseas real estate listings. They were allegedly connected to property in Barnes, an affluent and highly sought-after area in London. If the name Barnes doesn't immediately ring a bell, think of it as a location known for wealth, comfort, and privacy. It isn't famous for flashy celebrity culture. Instead, it offers a quieter atmosphere where high-profile individuals can often avoid the constant attention that follows them elsewhere. According to speculation, that level of privacy was one of the biggest attractions. What made the situation particularly interesting was that the reports didn't frame the property as a simple vacation home. That detail immediately sparked curiosity. People weren't talking about a temporary rental or a seasonal getaway. Stories about renovations and long-term plans led some observers to wonder whether the couple was preparing for something far more permanent. Then another phrase started appearing in online discussions, and it quickly gained momentum. The words were strategic retreat. As soon as that description entered the conversation, social media users began debating what it really meant. To many people, a strategic retreat sounded less like a lifestyle choice and more like an effort to step away from a difficult situation. Critics quickly developed their own interpretation. Their argument was that Blake Lively wanted to create significant distance between herself and the relentless criticism she was facing. In theory, relocating overseas could provide a lower-profile environment, a chance to reset public perception, and perhaps enough time for the controversy to cool down. From a practical standpoint, some people thought the approach made sense. Others, however, remained skeptical. Their response was simple. If Blake Lively moved to London, would that automatically change the public conversation surrounding her? That question became the foundation for countless jokes and online comments. Many critics pointed out that both Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds had built careers around visibility. Their public identities were closely tied to interviews, social media engagement, red carpet appearances, and a constant presence in entertainment news. Because of that, plenty of people doubted they could completely step away from the spotlight and settle into a quiet, anonymous lifestyle. One social media user captured the sentiment in a single comment that quickly gained attention. The person wrote, "You can relocate celebrities across the world, but you can't relocate them away from their own reputation." It was a sharp observation and many people shared it. At the same time, Ryan Reynolds already had growing ties to the United Kingdom through his involvement with a football club. That connection became an important part of the discussion because it gave him a different public image in certain communities. While many people still recognize him primarily as a Hollywood actor, others have come to know him through that favorable public image may have been more important than many people realized. Some commentators have suggested that Blake Lively could have viewed Ryan Reynolds' popularity in the United Kingdom as a major advantage. When you look at it from that perspective, the theory starts making sense. If public opinion in the United States seemed increasingly critical, relocating to a place where your spouse already enjoys strong support might appear like a logical move. To many observers, it felt calculated, practical, and exactly the type of decision high-profile celebrities might seriously explore. Yet while reports claimed Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were imagining a fresh chapter abroad, a completely different problem was reportedly unfolding on the other side of the Atlantic. And this is where the narrative begins taking a dramatic turn. While attention remained fixed on London, another issue was quietly building momentum in New York. It was expensive. It was highly visible. And eventually it became the kind of problem capable of overshadowing every other headline connected to the couple. Back in New York sat the enormous property project they had reportedly invested years into creating. This wasn't merely another luxury residence owned by famous people. It was widely described as a dream project, a place designed to reflect their personal vision down to the smallest detail. But then something unexpected appeared to happen. The work didn't simply slow down. It reportedly stopped altogether. Construction activity allegedly came to a standstill. Crews were no longer seen working. Progress appeared frozen. Before long, people began asking an obvious question. If Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were concentrating so much energy on plans overseas, what had become of the ambitious project they were building in New York? That question soon generated even more attention than anyone anticipated. At that stage, the conversation shifted from celebrity gossip to something many people considered genuinely surprising. Reports suggested that while the couple's attention was focused elsewhere, individuals involved with the New York construction project were becoming increasingly dissatisfied. And this wasn't described as a single disagreement involving one contractor and one invoice. According to accounts circulating publicly, multiple businesses, subcontractors, and workers had contributed significant time and resources to the property over several years. Then everything reportedly stalled. Imagine committing months or even years to a major construction project. You purchase materials, coordinate schedules, hire employees, and fulfill your responsibilities. Then suddenly the project stops moving forward. Work remains unfinished. Deadlines disappear. The completed property never materializes. And perhaps most importantly, payments become a source of concern. According to reports, that was the point where tensions began escalating. Public filings later revealed a number of mechanics liens connected to the property. For anyone unfamiliar with the term, a mechanics lien is essentially a legal claim filed by contractors or workers seeking payment for services they believe remain outstanding. That's why these filings attract so much attention. Once liens are attached to a property, major financial transactions become far more difficult. Selling the property becomes complicated. Refinancing becomes complicated. Ownership transfers become complicated. In many cases, the property effectively remains tied up until the underlying financial dispute is resolved. What shocked many people was the size of the figure being discussed. Reports suggested the total amount connected to the various claims was approximately $2.1 million. The moment that number started circulating online, reactions poured in from every direction. For many members of the public, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are associated with extraordinary success. People think of blockbuster films, lucrative business ventures, endorsement agreements, luxury travel, and substantial wealth. For many people, the entire situation seemed difficult to understand. The common assumption was that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds possessed enough wealth that a multimillion-dollar expense would barely register on their radar. Yet despite that perception, the issue reportedly progressed all the way into public records, and once that happened, speculation spread rapidly across the internet. At this point, someone following the story might jump in and ask, "Wait a second. Are people seriously claiming they don't have the money?" The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. What many people forget is that there is a significant difference between having a large net worth and having immediate access to cash. A person can technically be worth hundreds of millions of dollars while keeping relatively little money available in liquid form. Wealth is often tied to investments, real estate holdings, company ownership, stock portfolios, and business ventures. Those assets may look impressive on paper, but they are not always easy to convert into cash overnight. As a result, attention quickly shifted toward Ryan Reynolds' broader business portfolio. Online commentators began examining nearly every financial project connected to his name. His companies, investments, ownership interests, and sports-related ventures all became subjects of discussion. Before long, amateur internet investigators were dissecting various business commitments and attempting to estimate how much capital they might require. Some critics argued that certain ventures could involve substantial ongoing expenses. Others speculated that a few investments may not have produced the returns people expected. Eventually, a new explanation started gaining traction online. According to this theory, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds weren't necessarily experiencing financial hardship. Instead, they might have been dealing with a situation sometimes described as being wealthy in assets but limited in readily available cash. Whether that interpretation is accurate remains impossible for most outsiders to verify. Nevertheless, it became one of the most widely discussed explanations surrounding the controversy. Without it, people kept returning to the same basic question over and over again. Why did the matter reach such a public stage? Why allow disputes to progress to legal filings? Why expose the situation to public scrutiny? And perhaps most importantly, why take that risk when public perception was already becoming increasingly fragile? As conversations continued, the damage to Blake Lively's image appeared to grow. Then the focus shifted toward an issue that many observers considered even more problematic than financial speculation: accusations of inconsistency. The discussion was no longer centered exclusively on construction disputes or unpaid invoices. Instead, critics began comparing the allegations with the values Blake Lively had publicly promoted throughout her career. For years, she had cultivated an image centered around fairness, empowerment, and support for others. Those themes became closely connected to her public identity. Suddenly, critics started highlighting what they viewed as a contradiction. Their argument was straightforward. How could someone publicly advocate for working people while simultaneously facing allegations involving workers who claimed they had not been fully compensated? That line of criticism spread remarkably quickly. In fact, it moved much faster than discussions about property law or financial arrangements because the underlying concept was easier for everyday people to understand. Most people may not understand complex business structures. Most people do understand completing a job and expecting payment afterward. Once the narrative shifted in that direction, public reactions became noticeably stronger. The conversation stopped being about celebrity wealth and started focusing on contractors, electricians, plumbers, roofers, small business owners, employees, and families whose livelihoods depend on being paid for their work. That change in perspective had a significant impact on public sympathy. The polished image of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds as successful Hollywood figures suddenly found itself competing with a far less flattering storyline. In that version of events, hardworking professionals were allegedly left waiting while wealthy celebrities explored opportunities abroad. Whether that portrayal was entirely fair or not almost became irrelevant. For many people online, it was the version of the story that felt easiest to understand. And once a narrative gains momentum across social media, reversing it becomes extremely difficult. By this stage, the public was no longer focused solely on an unfinished mansion. Questions started appearing everywhere. People questioned the plans involving London. They questioned the timing of events. They questioned why construction had reportedly stopped. They questioned the financial disputes. They even began questioning the true condition of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' finances. What may have started as an effort to move beyond one controversy was now generating an entirely different controversy altogether. And the more attention people gave the situation, the more unanswered questions seemed to emerge. This is the point where the story reportedly shifted from merely controversial to potentially disastrous for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Because once observers began scrutinizing the financial side of the situation, they inevitably started examining the timeline as well. Think about the sequence of events. The construction project reportedly comes to a halt. Disputes involving contractors become public knowledge. Stories about London plans continue attracting attention. And suddenly, people begin wondering whether all of those developments are connected in ways nobody initially considered.